We begin in Ontario, where the Auditor General there, Bonnie Lysyk, has released a pretty damning report. It focused on government changes to the Greenbelt. Now, the Greenbelt is a protected area of agriculture and forest land in southern Ontario. Lysyk found some substantial problems. She says decisions were both rushed and biased. She also said the political staffers in charge gave preferential treatment to developers who bought the land.
Yeah, we have concern around what we saw, and hence I think you'll see the terminology that we've used throughout the report is this is a flawed process, this was a biased process. We saw what we think is preferential treatment. There's answers still to be obtained in a few areas. So I do believe we are saying this was not, we aren't even referring to it as a process in our report, we're calling it an exercise.
So for Ontario's Premier, the ends do justify the means. Doug Ford says he recognized the process was flawed, but he also emphasized his priority is building more homes.
The report says what was done wrong. The process should have been better, and I'm admitting the process should have been better. But when you're in a housing crisis, when you have an inferno happening, you know, the firefighters run to the fire. They don't run away from it. 1/3 of 1%, I'm going to repeat that number, 1/3 of 1% was taken out of the Greenbelt because it was beside an existing development. On one side of the street there's houses, the other side of the street it's an empty field. What we did, we put 0.5 back in, 2,600 more acres. We have grown the Greenbelt.
CBC's Travis Danraj has the latest on what's in the report and the reaction to it.
Well, this report is scathing. In 95 pages, Ontario's Auditor General Bonnie Lysyk details abandoned protocols and processes, a lack of transparency in decision-making, and preferential treatment given to a handful of well-connected developers that use their influence to secure lucrative plots of once protected land, all while the housing minister wasn't overseeing his own staff.
The housing minister informed us that he was not aware of the specifics of what his chief of staff was working on in terms of the Greenbelt site selection exercise. And the chief of staff told us that he did not inform the housing minister of his part in the Greenbelt amendments. In our view, the housing minister ought to have known the key details of such a high-profile and politically sensitive government exercise and ensure that Cabinet and the Premier were also made fully aware of these details.
In a sometimes combative press conference, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, said that they accept 14 of the 15 recommendations that Bonnie Lysyk had in her report. He admitted that the process may have moved too quickly and they will do better moving forward. Now, reaction to all of this from the opposition parties, as you can imagine, has been swift, with some wanting to see the housing minister, Steve Clark, lose his job.
I think it's pretty clear that these decisions serve the interests of Conservative Party donors and friends. Should the housing minister's chief of staff be fired? Yes. I'm going to go further. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the minister himself who needs to be fired.
Now, the one recommendation that the government is not following through with in this report is putting back the land that was already removed from the Greenbelt for development. The auditor says that that is not needed. The government says they do because we are currently in a housing crisis that continues to grow. Travis Danraj, CBC News, Toronto.